What's up, folks? Welcome back to TacticalTortoise. My name is Trevi, and we have a very short video about some awesome announcements that Games Workshop is making this weekend. Yesterday, April 1st, Games Workshop released a short trailer, promised to announce the return of the squat faction to Warhammer 40,000. That said, it was April 1st, so everyone assumed it was a bold-faced lie. After all, who in their right mind would release some sort of clickbaity, totally untrue video on the 1st of April? That's just wild and crazy. And I'm never playing the game of Warhammer 40,000 ever again. But today, Saturday, April 2nd, Games Workshop has released an article promising that yesterday's reveal was true. The initial trailer was a gorgeous 2-minute long animatic showing a derelict Imperial ship. We got some hints that it looks like the ship had been scuttled by gene stealers. We see some broken Tyranid body parts in the background, although the captain had been stabbed by what looks like an ornate sword. Maybe he killed himself though, I guess, to be fair. We then also see another little ship docking with the derelict and the airlock opening to reveal a squat. For those who don't know, squats were an OG faction in Warhammer 40,000. They're essentially space dwarves. We already had Eldari, which are space elves, orcs, which are ostensibly space orcs, and squats created the trifecta of Tolkien-esque fantasy races in the 41st millennium, although they were later discontinued and mostly erased from the game. This has given rise to the term squatting, where a less popular part of the game or lore is erased entirely by Games Workshop, unceremoniously, never to be spoken of again. However, some of the specialist games, such as Necromunda, have been slowly reintroducing them back into the universe. And today, we got the announcement that they will be returning to Warhammer 40,000 as a fully fledged 40k faction. Now, they've done away with the name Squat, which I appreciate. To be honest, it sounded a little bit offensive. And their new faction name is going to be Leagues of Votann. This sounds a lot more appropriate and way cooler. In today's spoiler trailer, we saw a couple silhouettes of some potential models, and we got a fully painted model sculpt. Now, on a personal note, I don't love the direction of including fantasy races in the 41st millennium, or at least in sci-fi games in general, although that is part of the core identity of Warhammer 40k, so it's not something that's going to go away anytime soon. But if you have to do it, this is a pretty good aesthetic to go with. This guy's got a lot of StarCraft vibes going on, and as a longtime StarCraft fan, I can super dig it.
Hell, it's about time.
I also really appreciate that the game is diving more into the lore of abhumans and mutated humans, which are a big part of the background of Warhammer 40,000, but are rarely seen in the game proper, outside of things like Ogryn occasionally, for the brief shining moments where Astra Militarum are actually a playable faction. The April 2nd article also talks about how the faction is going to be technologically advanced with a lot of pre-Dark Age technology available to the Leagues of Votann, and it has a, quote, uneasy relationship with the Imperium of Man, meaning that this may not be an actual Imperial faction. I also like this direction because humanity as a monoculture is always a little bit weird in sci-fi universes. Obviously, we have the Chaos factions, but that's a whole nother can of worms. The fact that basically every human exists under the Imperium of Man is sometimes unbelievable, and so having this offshoot faction of phenotypically different looking humans that split off tens of thousands of years ago and exist entirely separately as their own enclave is really cool. Now, the article also talks about the faction having a knack for science, a headstrong nature, and skilled warriors backed up by reliable weaponry. It'll be interesting to see how this converts into game mechanics. One thing that I always found interesting about a faction like this is trying to differentiate it from all of the other relatively elite, highly skilled, power-armored factions in 40k. Armies like Space Marines and Adeptus Custodes are also made up of skilled warriors, reliable weaponry, and tend to be relatively defensively oriented, so how the Leagues of Votann differentiate themselves is going to be pretty interesting to see. Overall, I'm mostly excited about getting a new faction in 40k. I'm hoping we get some helmets for these guys, by the way. Maybe some old-timey bubble helmets. That'd be pretty sick. I'm not a huge fan of bear-headed models in my Warhammer 40,000 armies, So if we can get some hats for these gentlemen, I think it's going to be a pretty cool looking army overall. Anyway, that's all I have to say for today about the Leagues of Votann. Let me know down in the comments what you think about the introduction of this new faction to 40k. I'm happy to see new factions being introduced into the game. I was crossing my fingers for spindle drones. We didn't quite get that, but you know, maybe next time around the sun. And anyway, that's it. Thanks for watching all the way to the end of the video. Big thanks to everybody who supports the channel over on Patreon, patreon.com/tacticaltortoise, YouTube channel members, Twitch subscribers. All you people are awesome. Remember to keep it classy, folks, and have happy wargaming.